All right, so for this video, we're going to go over the upper and lower limbs, and we're going to start with the clavicle. All right, so the only thing you'll have to know about your clavicle here is which side is which. That is, which side attaches to the sternum and which side attaches to the acromion of the scapula here. So the sternal end is a club-like, and this end is kind of flat right over here. So this is the acromial or lateral end, which is going to attach to the acromion of the scapula. The scapula is a kind of a complex shape right here. Looking at it from the front, you got this smooth surface right here, which would be your subscapula fossa. And you could see on the front of it also your coracoid process. So in some language, coracoid means crow's beak, and so it kind of looks like a crow's beak. So that's your coracoid process, your subscapular fossa. And then over here, you got your medial border that is toward your vertebral column right here. And then this is facing out, the lateral border right here. At the tip of your lateral border here, you got your glenoid cavity. This is where your humerus is going to fit in, right? So on the back, looking from the back here, you got this obvious scapular spine right here. At the end of the scapular spine, you have the acromion right there. So those two major processes are the acromion and the coracoid process. The acromion is on the back. Ac is back, and it leads from the spine, right? And so also related to the name of the spine is your supraspinous fossa and your infraspinous fossa on the posterior side. So that's the front and the back. Looking at it from this side, the most obvious thing here is your glenoid cavity, glenoid. And you also have a supraglenoid tubercle meaning a rough projection of the bone, and an infraglenoid tubercle, right? These are going to be muscle attachment points for your biceps brachii and your triceps brachii over here. So those tubercles are just kind of rough, small surfaces of the bone over there. All right, so that's your scapula. Sitting inside that glenoid cavity right there is the humeral head right here, the head of the humerus. So this is looking at the front of the humerus right here. Here's the posterior side. And so the head of the humerus is this rounded structure right here. The neck, or the anatomical neck rather, is this kind of, there's a line, sort of subtle line right here that you could see. Whereas the surgical neck, this is named because this is often a point where your humerus might get broken during certain sports injuries, right? This is the surgical neck. So you got your anatomical and your surgical neck right here. The two other major features are your greater and lesser tubercle. Right over here, these projections, the greater one's a little bit bigger, but it's a little bit higher as well, right? So from the posterior side, you can only see the greater tubercle because it's sticking out a little bit. All right, so in between those two tubercles, you have what's called an intertubicular sulcus. You can also call this the bicipital groove. This is where your biceps brachii tendi goes running up. So all those surfaces and everything are on the proximal end, right? The only thing you'll want to know that I would ask you about on the shaft over here is this deltoid tuberosity, right? Tuberosity is, again, a raised kind of projection of the bone. And this is where your deltoid muscle is going to attach to. Down at the distal end, over here, you have a couple of projections and a joint surface right here. Right, so on the medial side of your bone, right? So the medial side facing your body right here, you got the medial epicondyle, right? So the condyle is this joint surface right here. Epi, meaning above, you got this medial epicondyle. That's like the most prominent projection, and it's on the medial side. Right? You also have a lateral epicondyle, which is not very pronounced. Underneath here, the joint surfaces where it's going to join up with your radius and your ulnar. The overall part of it is the condyles, but they're split into two regions, your capitulum and your trochlea right here, right? So those are the two different regions. Your trochlea is what is interfacing or connected with your ulnar bone, and your capitulum is what's sitting on top of your radius. So once we get to the radius, we're going to see the head of the radius. The way I remember this is the radius has a cap on it, right? So the capitulum and the trochlea over here. And then your medial epicondyle is this prominent projection right here. And then the last part that I would ask about is the olecranon fossa. Olecranon fossa. Again, a fossa is this kind of indentation of the bone right there. Don't worry about the coronoid. Well, yeah, let's skip the coronoid fossa. Just remember the olecranon fossa over here, because that is where the olecranon of your ulnar bone gets into. So these will begin with your bones of your upper limb right here, your ulnar and your radial bone right here. All right, so the ulnar is the medial bone, that is the one facing your body. Your radius bone, remember in anatomical position that your thumbs are facing out, right? So the radius is on your thumb side right there. So here's from the front view right here. This will be where where it connects with the actual humerus right here, right? That's the back of your olecranon fitting in your olecranon fossa. So these two bones, right, are joined together, or they're sitting together. There's a couple of ligaments attaching them. One of those is it's one of those other fibrous joints, this long fibers connecting the two called the intraosseous membrane, right? And this will allow movements of these two bones around each other. All right, so so you got the radial head and then the radial tuberosity are these structures you'll want to know for the radius up here. And then for your ulnar, you got the olecranon, you got the trochlea notch, you got a radial notch where the radial head sits in, and then this coracoid process over here that kind of juts out over here, right? So those are the features proximally, and then we'll go down. There's nothing really all the way down until you get to the distal end that you would have to know right here. So on each side, forming sort of the brackets of your wrist joint here, you got a radial styloid process, and then you got the ulnar styloid process over here, right? So they're forming a sort of a cup-shaped region where your wrist is going to fit in. So here's the radial, here's the ulnar styloid process. All right, so, and remember that the radial head is sitting right, nestling inside this radial notch of the ulnar bone. Your radius, which is right here, has a ulnar notch, ulnar head is sitting into. So your radial head is proximal, your ulnar head is distal, right? And so the radial notch of the ulnar bone is up here. Your ulnar notch of the radial bone is distal. So next we're going to go to your hand. We got these 8 carpal bones right here, and they have names which I'll get into in a second. But the carpal bones, these kind of short bones that make up, the bottom, the proximal portion of your hand right here, are joined up here by what are called metacarpals. These metacarpals are named logically starting from the thumb: metacarpal 1, metacarpal 2, metacarpal 3, metacarpal 4, metacarpal 5, right? Those, as we move distally, they're going to be connected to the phalanges, right? So your digits right here, this is all in your palm, right? Your palm goes up to here, and then your digits begin, right? And all your digits are named logically also. This is digit 1, digit 2, digit 3, digit 4, digit 5. So each of your digits is composed of either 3, or in the case of the thumb, 2 of these phalanges. And again, they're logically named. The one closest to your wrist, or the one connected to your metacarpal, is the proximal phalange of digit 2. In this case, this is your index finger. The middle phalange of digit 2, the distal phalange of digit 2, right? So that's how those are named, right? So those are what you want to know about the hand, and those are all logically named. You don't have a lot of memory, right? Just know that the metacarpals, right above the carpals, right? And again, this is all part of your palm right here. And then these are your fingers, actually, your digits. And those have those 3 individual bones. Each of these are individual bones. Right, and your thumb only has the proximal and distal one. It only has the two.